supply West Africa, especially when you understand the implications of supplying over 440 million people in 16 nations, and we'll give our reasons. Our first argument is the continuance of outdated agricultural practices. We talk about the fact that there's a lot of involvement in agriculture. I can tell you that 70% of that involvement is subsistence farming. How can you compete globally? Do you understand the amount of market? Just the other day, you met my team opposition. I heard you mention strategy, and I laughed. Just yesterday, Kaduna State, under his governor, was the first state to implement the SPSA agreement that can standardize and allow for trade of agricultural produce between Nigeria and other countries. It is the first state. Ebonyi State that we are saying is ready has not even made that agreement. With that agreement, they have backing from the African Development Bank, under the leadership of Dr. Kinwumi Adesina, to provide the right seed, to provide biosecurity training for their farmers to compete at that level. We cannot talk about things like that if we don't build capacity. Not talking about agricultural practices, but also talk about technology. You don't understand that there are crops that you cannot grow in Ebonyi State now. But look at places like Israel. You can grow literally any crop. Why? Technology. You can grow anything there. Look about, we are still depending on climate cycles. Okay, even if we are producing a lot of rice, do you know what it will take to feed 440 million people? We need to wait for the seasons to come and seasons to go to feed them. We see that this argument does not stand. It does not hold water. Secondly, for us to consider is logistics and supply drawbacks. Agriculture is not just production. Anyone that knows agriculture knows that there are a lot of things within the supply chain that determine if what you have produced can get to market. You mentioned roads. How many roads do we have? How many roads can connect the farmer, in example, to the roads that will take her down? Many of us have farmer parents. We know the struggle in moving from those roads that we have from there to market. Again, let me even mention, we're not talking about moving within the state, we're talking about exporting. You might mention that we have an airport here. How many cargo planes can fly there? Was it built to carry cargo planes? That's something for us to consider. Secondly, how do we store these things? Let me tell you, it's not about exporting raw products. Where the power is having processed packaged products that can be taken anywhere and that can be used even in other countries in West Africa. Talk about even things that we can grow. How much can we grow the things that are not indigenous here? Have we built that capacity? So you see that we have a lot of challenges, logistics, supply, drawbacks. The next thing that we have to understand, the third factor is that we have, let me ask you a question. Can you tell me what the policy of the US is on foreign policy currently? You may not be able to give a phrase, but you know what it is. It's protectionist policy. They are preserving themselves. Can you give me what their policy is on immigration? Little or no immigration, right? Yes, but can you tell me in clear terms what the policy of agriculture is? You can't mention it. What we have are outdated documents and not even implemented. So the government cannot come out and say today, this is our stand on investment. This is how we're going to encourage foreign companies to come inside there. Because let me tell you, you cannot depend on one farmer here. See, the percentage of the population that produces the food that America eats is just 1 to 2%. 1 to 2%. But we have 70%, and we are doing a lot of what we are doing. But we're not able to move these things out because we don't have a clear policy. A clear policy will tell foreign companies that they can come here. I'll give you an example of what we have in Malaysia. Malaysia is a country that caviar, the luxury food caviar is not indigenous there because the kind of fish, the particular fish, sturgeon fish that produces caviar is not grown there. But caviar is being produced in Malaysia and is competing in the global market as we speak. Why? Two things. Number one, there is a policy that ensures that people that come in to invest, there's a free, ecosystem. The people that invested in caviar today were a France company, and they invested about 20 million euros. Can I tell you what the investment of Ebonyi State, the budget of Ebonyi State for agriculture is 6.6 billion naira. 6.6 billion naira. Not up to 2% of the budget. What are we here to say? How can you compete at that level? Let me tell you. But secondly, the next thing is a policy framework that allows that when these companies come, there's a system that makes sure that they can maximize their profit, and they also have laws that protect their labor. So people that work in those caviar farms are paid twice what normal people are paid. Because with growth comes challenges. With growth comes the possibility of exploitation. Do you have laws that will guard against that? Do you have laws that tells you what that tells you how your spending for the next few years in agriculture will be? We do not have those things at the moment, and so we cannot stand here to make those arguments because we have not prepared ourselves. Just because a lion cub and a male lion are lions doesn't mean that you can take the lion to hippopotamus and it will stand. Obviously not. You cannot take the cub to the hippopotamus and it will stand. What the club needs to do is to build capacity. Now, I need to state clearly that we're not saying that Ebonyi is not ready in a few years. There's potential. But how are we going to its potential? When we start looking at its potential, you will explain and explain and explain. Like they say, no evidence. So therefore, I believe that I've made clear points to this fact. And rounding up, these are solutions that I will prefer. Number one, we should invest in growing our local supply. Number two, we should increase our policy direction, let it be strong, so that companies that are coming know what they are going to expect, know that there is a good regulatory framework for them for their investment and their safety. Number three, we should encourage innovation in this sector. We can encourage innovation in this sector to ensure that in the next couple of years, Ebonyi State will be competitive. But surely we are not competitive and cannot supply that market in the interim. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was first speaker team opposition with the bars. Let's now welcome, without further ado, second speaker team accommodating for their team case. Here.
First of all, you cannot live in a glass house and cast stones. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. May I remind you that Ebonyi State today has the presence of trade and investment ventures. Trade and investment ventures such as the international market, which is a global standard ultra-modern. We also have the presence of the international mall, which is also built to the high standard. These are major trade and investment ventures which Ebonyi State has set up in order to make itself a trade center for other countries, especially in West Africa, to be able to come into it and make purchases. Now, the team opposition here came and made it look as if we're only arguing about food. Now, we're not just arguing about Ebonyi State being able to produce food, to be able to feed the West African countries around us. We're also saying that it has the capacity to grow raw materials and also mineral resources to feed those countries economically as well. Now, what I mean is that Ebonyi State is known as one of the leading countries in the world today, leading states in Nigeria today. It produces iron ore, it produces limestone, it produces even iron that you find in your pocket when you bath. Ebonyi State exports these things to other continents, even other countries in Africa today. So looking at Ebonyi State as only a state that we're arguing for to be able to produce food is actually fallacious and should be discouraged. Second of all, when we talk about Ebonyi State being able to produce food or being ripe enough to feed West Africa, we're also talking about food security. Now, food security in the sense that Ebonyi State needs to have this, and does he have this? Yes, he does. Food security in the sense that Ebonyi State today is known as one of the states that can produce comfortably.
So my question is, if you mention international markets and the markets as an investment in that country, then let's use this example. Let's assume that that is correct. What happens to this is that people from other Western countries coming to buy it. For example, in Aba, that we have a lot of the big markets, and people from different parts of West Africa come to buy it. You cannot substantiate that in the national market. How many can we count the national market as one of the leading markets in Nigeria? That's my question.
That's the easy generalization. How would you know if foreign people come into that market to buy something? Do you have drones in the air to check the market? Then also when you talk about that, do you also have drones or something that checks to be sure that these people actually come there? Statistics are showing that this market is where people come and they purchase things from this market. Secondly, Ebonyi State is one of the leading states in Nigeria today that is implementing one of the SDG goals. Goal number 1, goal number 2, it talks about elevating poverty and also elevating food scarcity. So Ebonyi State is leading in this SDG, so sustainable development goals, and is protecting its food security as one of the leading states in Nigeria today. Also, team opposition mentioned Malaysia. Malaysia today is benefiting largely from Nigeria's production of palm oil, which Ebonyi State produces a mass. Now, Malaysia today is thriving on that economically because they are seen today to be one of the leading countries in the world, in West Africa, that produces palm oil. And how did they get this? From Nigeria. And which state produced the palm oil that was exported to Malaysia? Of course, Ebonyi State was part of it. Now, I want to correct the area that Ebonyi State is already a leading proponent, that Ebonyi State is the only proponent that wants to export this goods. Now, we're only saying that Ebonyi is one of them. It's a major proponent. It's not the only proponent. So I need to just let it out so that we don't mix up things. With this,
Right, so thank you so much, Akin Fortune, for that argument. All right. Speaker team opposition to substantiate their team argument in their team case. Yeah.
The future of food production is not just to produce enough for the future, but also to produce food in a way that is substantial, sustainable, equitable, and just. But before I go on with my point of content, I'd like to see if it is to the point of argument raised by the team opposition. I think we're important. The first thing, to add weight to what my first speaker has already mentioned, I will present the following content. Firstly, Ebonyi State lacks the necessary and adequate capital investment in agriculture to be able to scale up its food production and its livestock production, to be able to cater the needs, the growing needs of the West African population. I was actually expecting the team opposition to make mention of financial investments in the economic sector of agriculture. May I present it to this honorable house and the panel of our distributions that foreign California, one of the best producing states in US in agriculture, has a current budget of about $130 million just for a sector of the agriculture. Coming down to the state here, we only have about 6.7 billion naira budgeted for our agriculture sector out of a total billion of 550 billion naira. Beginning down to our close neighbor, Benue State, one of the food producing states in Nigeria, budgeted a total of 84 billion naira out of their budget of over 500 billion naira just for agriculture. So I wonder, and I want to ask the house, how would you expect to feed a growing team of the West African population without clear-cut investment? May I make it known to this house that agriculture is a capital-intensive venture that requires investment in logistics, investment in research institute, investment in subsidies, investment in technology and cutting-edge digital solutions, even investment in agricultural insurance. What has been put on ground to cater for all this? Let me ask this out. How many research institutes do we have currently in Ebonyi State to actually make more researches on modern technology, to actually make more researches for agricultural production?
What evidence do you have that the lower amount of capital is given to the agricultural sector in the state?
Firstly, the evidence I have for now is our budgetary allocation, and then there hasn't been substantial evidence or plans by the state government to actually invest massively in agriculture. Just like the first speaker said, Kaduna yesterday signed an agreement with the African Development Bank that gives it access to a lot of capital to increase and enhance its agricultural productivity. Where is Ebonyi State in all this? Like you mentioned, it's the only state in Nigeria to actually implement that. And I ask again, if we don't have enough capital investment on grounds for others, including the logistics, including the research, including the production, including the supply, including even providing subsidized seeds, providing livestock varieties that including provide seeds that are of various species and not indigenous to Africa. How do we expect to feed the teeming population of West Africa? Secondly, the steady growing and increasing levels of food insecurity in Ebonyi State likely limits its capacity to enhance production. I heard the team opposition mention that we actually have food security in Ebonyi State, and I asked her, the National Bureau of Statistics released a report in 2020 stating that Ebonyi State has one of the highest levels of food insecurity with a poverty index rate of about 79%. And it has been shown in the last few years that rate has not actually been. When we talk about food security doesn't just mean having access to food. Food security means having physical and economic access to food at any point and at any time that will meet the direct requirements of an individual. And with this poverty rate, how do we expect, how is it shown that Ebonyi State actually has enough food security for each state and then to talk of Nigeria and West Africa? Again, it has been shown that Ebonyi State with a population of 3, if Ebonyi State, if Ebonyi State with a population of 3 million cannot effectively secure food for eating, how then do you expect it to feed the teeming population of Nigeria? Because last time I checked, Nigeria was still in West Africa, and Nigeria has a population of about 200 million people. Then before you even talk of West Africa, which has a teeming population of over 400 million people. I believe, for clarity's sake, my colleague and I are not saying. For clarity's sake, my colleague and I actually believe that yes, Ebonyi State has the potential to actually Ebonyi State actually has the potential that is right to feed not just Nigeria but West Africa. But given the current economic realities, it is not in place. However, following certain and clear-cut strategies, Ebonyi State can actually get there. Like they say, Rome was not built in a day. So I believe with some of these strategies, of implementing clear and cost-direct policies, and also making sure that Ebonyi State invests heavily in agriculture. Not only that, making sure that the economy is right, the state is conducive enough for foreign investors, and also making sure that we collaborate with international agencies. I believe that one day Ebonyi State will be a room in being able to feed and supply West Africa effectively.
Then let's give it up for second speaker team opposition. I'm waiting for their team summary in 1 minute.
Okay, our team talked about agricultural capacity, government policies, strategic location, and we talked about food. We talked about production of food and feeding the economy. But the team opposition were not able to talk more on the feeding of the economy. They just based the argument on the food production, which makes the team opposition to lose in today's debate. Now, we also talked about how the mineral resources, the iron ore, the oil production. But the team opposition were not able to give us clear evidence that the senior speaker from the team opposition was not able to give a good argument to support her stand, but was there going contrary to what was given in the particular motion. With this, I raise my case. Thank you.
For their team summary in 1 minute.
I would like to point our attention to a few things that are observed. The first thing is that the context of this discussion is purely agricultural. It was not a question about mineral resources, and I don't understand how the food production is doing that. Secondly, when we're talking about investment in agriculture, they are clear concepts. I think that my proposition team have clearly understood some of the basic things that defines as the key investment in agriculture, which we describe actually. Things like availability of
the right seedlings, availability of capital for people that want to start businesses, because that is what makes an economy or agricultural sector to thrive. So I would like to round up by saying that while we may not be there yet, we can be there. We can, as a state, invest in building the right capacity, invest in building the skill set of our people, invest in things like infrastructure, invest in technology, and these things will eventually trickle down and lead to a growth in the agricultural sector. With that, I want to say that we have made it clear, beyond reasonable doubt, given the fact, this is not an emotional case, given the fact before us that Ebonyi State at the moment is not ready to feed us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.